Hey, gorgeous! Welcome to the Business Mindset Podcast with Holly Wharton, which combines powerful strategies on how to upgrade your business mindset, along with practical business tips to grow your business. This podcast features solo shows with Holly and also interviews with inspiring women entrepreneurs from around the world. Thank you so much for joining us today. And now, here's your host, Holly Wharton.
Hello and welcome to the Business Mindset Podcast, episode 152. This is your host, Holly Wharton. I'm here with today's special guest, Karina Ladet. Karina is an intuitive healer, writer, and passionate heart-centered entrepreneur who offers intuitive readings, mentoring, and teaches amazing people how to communicate with their spirit guides and open up to their inner guidance both online and in live retreats worldwide. Welcome, Karina.
Thank you, Holly. I'm so glad to be here.
I'm really excited to have you here today. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and your business journey and how you got to where you are today?
Oh, wow. That's a really long story. But I guess it started with, because my business is so linked to my spirituality and discovering that, I guess. It really started, I guess for a lot of people, I started out reading a lot of books and being curious, but it really started when I was in Stockholm, Sweden. That was 15 years ago. And I went to this weekend retreat, channeling retreat, which is kind of funny because I don't think it's like the first spiritual workshop or retreat you do, but that was like my thing. I was like, oh, that sounds so exciting. I have to try it. And then I took this retreat for like 2 days, and it was just life changing. I knew I'd found my thing, and I knew I wanted to channel for other people and connect with my spirit guides and teach others how to do this too. So that's how I guess my spiritual journey started, or at least the part that was linked into my business later on. And then I spent years knowing I wanted to do this, but still, having a normal job, doing normal life for quite a few years. And then I started my business 4 years ago. So, and I started with that. I created my website and I put up like intuitive readings, channeling sessions, and I started from there. And it's quite interesting because I feel like for me, the biggest challenge was all those years before to actually get started. And once I got started, it feels like I've been on this really wild, intense ride, and it doesn't seem to slow down. I mean, I've had slow moments in my business, but it's been really, really intense. And it's like the moment I said yes, it was like a really full on yes.
Excellent. And what were the challenges you had around saying yes and getting started with your business?
Oh gosh, pretty much everything. But my main challenges were waiting for the moment when I was really ready, when I had everything together and knew exactly what I was doing, and I had all the technical skills to get started, and I had a plan, and all those things that for most people never actually happen. So I was just waiting for that magical, I'm ready, it's the perfect time, until one day when I realized that was probably never going to happen, because my life would never be perfect in that sense. Because I think starting our businesses and doing the work we're really called to do is always going to require a bit of faith in that kind of moment of, I'm jumping. I don't really know exactly how it's going to go, but I'm willing to try. So it was a lot of things to do with feeling that I wasn't ready, or that I needed something else before I could actually get started. So yeah, those were my main challenges.
And did you experience any fears or blocks coming up as you were building your business? Because I know doing intuitive readings, that's for something for a very niche market, and that's kind of a very special kind of person that seeks out that kind of thing. So did you have any fears about putting yourself out there to the world as this person who does intuitive readings?
I guess I did, but I did it in a kind of sneaky way. Sometimes when I have fears, I'm like, okay, so what's the easiest way I could do to make this less scary so that I will actually do it? So that's been kind of my technique. So what I did is, so I live in France, but I'm Swedish. So I actually started a blog in Swedish, and I would offer my services in Swedish. So I felt like I was in this bubble. and no one really knew what I was doing. So my French friends didn't know because they don't speak Swedish, and I wasn't living in Sweden, so I couldn't like run into my boss and he'd be like, "Oh, I see that you do intuitive readings online." So that was actually a really easy way for me to start. So I started in that way, and then I started hanging out a bit online, and that's when a few people were like, "Why don't you do it in English? Because we don't speak Swedish either." And so I did, and that's when it felt like this door kind of just went boom, and of course it opened up to a much larger market. But for me personally, I still felt like I was in my own bubble that most of my everyday people would not kind of walk into, because I was writing in English and I was doing my work mainly in English, and all my friends here are French, so they couldn't read my blog posts or my newsletters. So it was really, really good in that way. I feel like I could just kind of move into that, and now I'm opening up more about it, and I've started doing more retreats and more work in French. So I feel like I'm kind of a bit, I guess, protected maybe from that being so visible in that way.
I love that, because on one hand, you open yourself up to this huge online world in English, but yet you still kind of protected yourself against your kind of offline world.
Yeah.
I love that. That was just absolutely fantastic how you kind of stretched outside of your comfort zone, but yet still kind of kept it for a little bit.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. For me, that was the easiest way. And I don't really lie to people when they ask me what I do, but I have a way of saying it that, I don't really say anything. I used to say I was in communications, because I used to be, and I kind of am. So.
I like that. How to be vague about what you do with the people that aren't going to understand you.
Yeah.
So was there a tipping point in your business where things really started to flow? Did it have to do with opening yourself up to English, or was there something else going on there?
The first step was definitely doing things in English. And then I was there have been a few kind of critical moments, and it's quite interesting because it happened very quickly after I started my business. So I waited for years, and then when I started, it felt like it went quite fast. Well, one of the big things that really helped me a lot was when I joined Leonie Dawson's academy. Well, it wasn't then, as you know, but it is now. And so actually Leonie was one of the first people I did a reading for online, which is kind of incredible now when I think back. And of course, she wasn't quite as well known in 2011, I think it was, as she is now. But so she was one of the first people. And because she's so generous and she loves sharing great tips and like people she loves with other people, she was such a great person to have kind of promote my work and share what I was doing. And that was, I definitely did not count on anything like that ever happening. So that was like a big surprise and I guess a breakthrough in my business too, because when you have like one or two people who really love what you do and they have a following and people trust them and you also resonate with their tribes, it's just so much easier to kind of reach a lot of people very quickly. And then you just have to keep doing good work so you don't, So that was one of the big moments as well. And then it's been like, one thing after the other. I do allow myself to be really guided in my business. And I really started out like that. And then I started thinking more about strategy and marketing and things like that. But very intuitively. And I think that also always helps us to move where the energy is the strongest in that moment. And I think there's a lot of power in that. So that's been really helpful.
Excellent. So can you tell us a little bit more about the work that you do in intuitive readings? Now, I think most of my listeners are pretty open to this kind of thing and probably know what we're talking about, but just to clarify.
And it's a great question because a lot of people do readings, but everyone does, there's so many different ways of doing them. So what I do is I don't really have any tools. I don't, draw cards or anything like that. I connect. I just take a moment to connect in with my soul and my spirit guides. And then I ask the person that I'm doing a reading for to ask me questions, or if they don't have any questions, to just kind of let whatever needs to come through. And then I do, I guess it's called verbal channeling. So I kind of say the messages that come through me. So often it's like I hear a voice and I just kind of say what that voice is saying.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I get images and like symbols and very specific. Sometimes it's like a situation or a symbol or something from the past or future, or sometimes present as well. And then I just trust whatever comes through. And sometimes I don't know exactly what it is that I'm saying, and I don't always understand what the messages or the images are, but they always resonate for the person I'm channeling for, I'm doing a reading for.
Mm-hmm.
So that is like one of the biggest parts. And then it's really the energy that flows through, because it's kind of like a healing session at the same time, because there's so much energy coming through. And what I hear the most from my clients and people I've done readings for is that they feel really, it's like they're being wrapped up in love, and they feel really supported, and there's something really warm and loving. And it helps them to heal parts in them and to release things and kind of fill up with that beautiful energy.
I love that. So are you also channeling their spirit guides as you're doing this?
Well, usually what I do, I have this kind of protocol that I use. I connect in with my guides and I ask them questions. But if the person says, well, I want to know what my guides are saying, or I know that I have guides, can you help with the communication? Because a lot of my clients are really intuitive, but sometimes we're good with certain things and less with others. So they sometimes need a bit of reassurance or some clarity. So then I can tune into their guides and like describe them or transmit a message from them to my clients. But I guess because our guides are all, I don't even know if they really have shapes and names and all those things. It's more like it's like energy, right? So if they're mine or yours, in the end, I tend to really focus on the energy and how people feel and what it creates in their lives, instead of getting too caught up in them and the personality of their guides or, those things.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I think, we're so used to relating to other human beings in life. So I think a lot of people really want to kind of build up an image and a personality and really get to know their guides in that same kind of way that we relate to humans. But it kind of probably not very necessary.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's like, for a lot of people, that's really important, or like know if it's a man or a woman, if what their names are. I think that anything that helps us in our growth is great. So if that reassures people to see kind of a face or to sense something, or like sometimes some guides are really funny. So for someone who's like really nervous about channeling and doesn't know if they can do it, they can get a bit like tense. And so if they have a guide like cracking jokes and showing really funny images, it's a really great way to relax and really get the flow going. So I'm like, whatever works is great.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it comes down to trusting ourselves in receiving those messages. And, as you said, even if you don't understand what the message is, the person that you're channeling for, or working with usually does. So it's trusting that message means something to the client.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's probably one of the key things to trust, because often when people want to learn how to channel, it's like we think, and I think I probably thought this too when I first started, that, we're going to do this meditation and then all of a sudden we'll see this huge spirit guide, all like technicolor, and it's going to be so clear and the message is going to like resonate so clearly. And for most people, the first time is not like that. I mean, it can be, but usually it's like really, it's like intuition. It's really subtle. And if you don't ignore that, but you kind of keep listening and you trust that first thing, then it grows over time. So it's, definitely trust. Because if you brush it off or you're like, oh, I just made that up, then it's like you close the door. And
then, it's like you don't necessarily get a really clear kind of radio signal with, a radio show already going on. It's like a little bit of static, some words here and there, and you've got to kind of really hold on to those little bits that do come through so that you can kind of open up the faucet and get more coming through.
Yeah, I love that image. It's so true. It's exactly it. You're like, trying to find it, and then you hear a few words. Yeah, exactly. And then it's like going from one clue to the other. And then I think it's also because when you notice that it's working a little bit, you also build trust in yourself. Like, okay, I can actually do this. Because I guess it's like with anything, we're okay with the fact that it's possible, but is it really going to work for me? Because I have this or that, or I don't have, because I'm not one of those people who's been channeling since I was, a baby.
Yeah.
And I know sometimes when people find me, they're really happy to hear that when they read my story on my website, and they're like, oh, so it is possible to actually start learning these things, even if you don't remember doing it as a child.
Yeah. It's not like you're born with it or you're not. You can learn it.
Yeah, exactly.
Good. I love that. So we're here today to talk a little bit about the concept of in lak'ech and what an important part of your business that is. I loved it when I came across your website and I was reading. It's everywhere on your website. Can you tell us a little bit more about the concept of in lak'ech and how embracing that concept can really help your business?
Oh, that's such a beautiful question. And I love how I shared this with you already, Holly, but it was so funny when you were mentioning this this in your email to me, because someone wrote that in a message to me in 2012. Interesting year, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that concept again, right? Well, for me, it's really about, I feel that when we're in business, even if it's like intuitive business or some kind of, personal growth, or we want to help people in some way, we can so easily get caught up in the doing and in the marketing and in following the rules, or like just growing our businesses. And it's really easy to get lost and kind of lose why we're doing this and what our true values are and what our intention is underneath all the practical things like building a tribe and, making money and creating beautiful offers. And so for me, I bring that into everything I do. When I sit down to write my newsletters, so they're called love letters, that kind of gives you an idea. I always take a moment to tune in and to feel the love flowing from me to everyone on my list, and then feeling their love for me flowing back in. And I consider like my whole business. So that's like my Facebook page or my website or everything I do, even if it's just responding like one sentence to someone or leaving a comment somewhere, I always feel that flow of love between us and how we're all part of the same source, right? And so how everything I do and everything I say and everything I radiate, like all the energies that I send out, are also affecting everyone and everyone's affecting me. So it's like always thinking of how I contribute to the wholeness, I guess, of the earth and of the universe. And so when I think of that and I feel it particularly, it creates such a different way of doing business, because then I feel like it's a prayer. Everything I say or I do is like a prayer or a blessing for that person. And because when we pray or we bless, we feel the love too. It's like this, I don't know, it's like this big group hug, I guess. Oh, wow, this sounds a bit full on, but so that's kind of how I operate. And so I always see, it's like I see myself in everyone else. And I try to really connect on a deep soul level whenever I connect with people, because I feel like there's so much of that being separate in our world. And I don't want to contribute to that. I want us to feel that to remember that we're all connected, and that everything we do and everything we are is affecting others as well. So we don't have to do, big important things in that sense, but who we are and the energy that we radiate is really important, because that affects a lot more, I think, than we realize.
And how do you think your business has changed since you started focusing on this connection with other people?
Well, I feel like it's really expanded. Before, I used to feel that I was doing my thing in my little bubble or in my little corner of the world. And I think because I've been experimenting and I've been diving into this more and more, I just realized how how interconnected we are and how much bigger this network of us actually is. And you know how it is. Sometimes you'll post something somewhere and you're just doing it because you're inspired in the moment. And then all of a sudden you receive an email from someone and it's like, it just seems incredible how they even found you. But I think when we're in that energy and we're, I guess, vibrating with that energy, then everyone who's aligned with that, they're just going to be kind of drawn to us, just like we are drawn to them. And it just feels really magical, actually.
So let's talk a little bit more about this concept that you came across in 2012 in lak'ech, which is a Mayan word for, it's kind of the concept of I'm another you, you are another me, we're all connected, part of the same thing. So how do you feel that other entrepreneurs can incorporate this into their business?
Well, that's a great question. Well, I guess if we think so if when I think of my ideal client and I'm creating something or I'm, changing something in my business, so let's say I'm creating something in my business. And if I think that you are another me, my ideal client is another me, then it's just, I feel that right away, it really drops us into our hearts. And then it's more, okay, what would feed your soul? What would feel like a loving offer for you? And how can I really be of service? And then it feels warm and on purpose for me. And also it feels like I'm really contributing. I'm not just creating to create, or I'm not just trying to, make more money or build my business or because it fits with something else, but it's really coming from that genuine place of offering something of value. And I think in that kind of sometimes crowded online space as well, it's really wonderful to kind of drop into our hearts and into our souls and really ask ourselves, like, is this of value? Is this something that can really transform that person's life? And also I find it's related to how do we empower others so that they can be active human beings as well. Because one of the things that I love the most when I create something or I offer a service is that I want to empower the person that I'm seeing so that they can do things for themselves, not so they necessarily need to come back to me all the time. Like I love that. And for me, that's also whatever they see in me is also in them. So although I really appreciate all the beautiful comments and love that, people give me, I'm also very aware that I'm also a mirror for all the great things that are in them. So it's like that reflective thing too.
Yeah, I like that. And I think that's really important what you said about empowering people to help themselves as well. It's so that they don't feel like they always have to look outside themselves for the things that they're seeking.
Yeah, it's so easy to do that, isn't it? It's like, she looks like she has the answers, right?
Yes.
So if I get some of that, then I'm going to be okay. Instead of being more like inspired by others, but then see how we can implement that for us in a way that really suits us, because we're all unique, and it's wonderful to see people really do their thing in their own way. And you can always feel that authentic energy too.
Yeah, definitely. So, Karina, do you have any women business mentors? Are there any women entrepreneurs who inspire you? Maybe some women who really embrace this kind of coming from the heart and connection?
Oh, yes. There's so many, which I think is so wonderful about the online world, right? Is that we see these amazing women doing amazing things. And I think if I wasn't, hanging out so much online, I would not know that, because I don't know that many people in my communities, or maybe, some women that I'm surrounded by, but who do other things, right? So I love Leonie Dawson. She was like the first person I found, and I love how she's really staying true to herself, and she does her thing, and she's really brave and bold, and is always ready to kind of heal all the stuff that comes up so she can grow herself and her business. So I love her, and I love Hero Boga as well. She's just so wonderful. And she's got that really present, loving, and peaceful energy, but it's also really powerful. And that's something I really I really admire, because sometimes we see powerful women, but it's in a quite masculine way. So although I love that warrior energy, I also love when it's really kind of peaceful and it's more about being than doing.
Yeah, it's kind of being grounded and strong from that sense more than, as you said, warrior energy.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I think grounding is really, really important. And then I love Janelle Laporte, Nisha Moodley as well. There's just so many, and I love the variety as well, because it's like it just shows us all the different things that we can incorporate in our own businesses and all the facets of us that we are allowed to express. So I really love that. So I think those are the big ones that I really follow and have been reading for a long time. And usually it's the very grounded, powerful, but in a kind of very, very grounded and present way.
Yeah, I love that. So, Karina, how can other women work with you? What are the different options?
Well, if they want to work with me one-on-one, so I do single sessions, intuitive reading / healing sessions, because you kind of go with the flow. And then I do wise woman mentoring as well. So that's one-on-one sessions over 4 months and really deeply transformational soul work. I guess that's a good description. It's really intense, but in a really grounded way too. I try to really ground everything I do, because it's, it can get really out there, I guess, when it's very spiritual and multidimensional, but I think it's really important to ground that so that we can actually use it in our everyday life and we feel more present and happier in our everyday life. And then I've created a bunch of guided meditations so that people can use them at home and just get enough guidance so they can move through these inner journeys, but they don't necessarily need to have that one-on-one support unless they want to. And then I have a spirit guide kit as well, where I have this, it's like a 5-step journey to connect in with your spirit guides and to receive messages from them. So that's I really loved, that was the first thing I created, and it was really fun, and I was really guided. I mean, I had no idea how to do anything when I started. And you know how it is when it's the right thing, like the right person shows up and it just falls into place. So I do that as well. And then I have a program that I'm right in the middle of. It's called the Clear Your Path and Shine program. So it kind of explains what it is, but it's like an 8-week long program where I take people from where they are now, like setting intentions, clearing out. We do a lot of clearing, and then setting their like new intentions, and then connecting in with like the wise parts in them and their future selves and that kind of thing. So it's really deep and intense,
I like that.
but really exciting. And so I've been running that a few times now, and it's been, it's just, I love watching women mostly grow and support each other, because I really love the group programs. It's just so beautiful to watch that. So that's mainly what I do.
Great. So where can people find you online?
So it's very easy. I'm very lucky with my name, actually, because apparently no one else has that name. So it's KarinaLadet.com. And I use my name everywhere on Facebook. I hang out a lot on Facebook. Instagram, I have a YouTube channel, and I'm on Pinterest as well. And I think that's it. Yeah, Twitter, but I'm not very active. But definitely Facebook and Instagram a lot. So
great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Holly. Such a pleasure.
Yes, and thank you for listening. And remember to visit hollywharton.com/152 for the show notes on this episode. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to the Business Mindset Podcast with your host, Holly Wharton. You can find more information about today's episode, including links for topics that were discussed, at hollywharton.com. And if you enjoyed this episode, please remember to head over to iTunes and leave a quick review of this podcast. It just takes a minute. Thank you.